Mága Carhirlach. Taoiseach báilm fáilte mór a gabhfuil leat go dtí an Seanad aniu, is ionóir mór é don Seanad tú bheith in ar measc agus an seans óráid dhéanamh ar cuasaí polítíochta agus Oireachtas go dtí seo. Is tradiisiún iontach má an Taoiseach an lei teachtasteach go dtí an Seanad agus gabhann buíochas leat a socht an tradiisiún seo a leanacht aniu. I'd like to welcome you, Taoiseach, today to the Seanad, and responding I intend to be constructive, by which I mean to say both positive and critical. We all know that it has been an exceptionally busy time recently trying to address the challenges of Brexit. The Taoiseach and your government have enjoyed huge cross-party support on this vital national matter. I also believe it is important to acknowledge that my own party's role in this by taking the correct decision last December by extending the confidence and supply arrangement in the interests of the nation. I know, Taoiseach, that you will agree with me on that. Brexit is one of the greatest challenges that we have faced as a nation. And I'd like to congratulate you, Taoiseach, and indeed the Taoiseach for the role that you have played. And I also compliment your excellent the civil servants both in the Department of Taoiseach and in the Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade. It has effectively been an ongoing crisis since June 2016 as we face the consequences of dealing with a decision we deplore. In the words of a former Taoiseach and Fine Gael leader, John Bruton, it is actually an unfriendly act towards this country from our nearest neighbour. However, for those of us who are committed to the European ideal, one consolation we can take from the Brexit ordeal is that membership matters. The EU has been there for us, and it shows so clearly the advantage of working in a large multinational organisation to achieve common goals. We still face uncertainty. Indeed, after the events of recent weeks, it is even harder to say how things may develop going forward. But what I do say, and on behalf of my own party in this House, we will be as one in standing up for Ireland's vital national interests. I mentioned earlier the ongoing crisis with Brexit. Sadly, though, it's not the only ongoing crisis that we face. The lack of an assembly in the north for over 2 years is shameless. When citizens needed the assembly most, they were let down. Civil servants are actually running Northern Ireland, and all we hear is shouting and pontification from the main parties. This has to stop before direct rule becomes a reality. We all agree the Good Friday Agreement should be protected, but as we speak here today, Strand 1 and Strand 2 are broken. Taoiseach, you will agree that we cannot become complacent about this, and more must be done by both the British and Irish governments to get the Assembly back up and running. To adapt the Churchill phrase in Northern Ireland, the fact is that when the Brexit issue is resolved, we will still face the dreary steeples of housing and health. The fact is, Taoiseach, the government is presiding over a crisis that is marked by homelessness reaching unprecedented levels, surging rents at historic heights, home builders numbers tens and thousands behind where they need to be, and over 130,000 people in need of permanent social housing. All the while, another massive problem is emerging that the government is completely ignoring. Ordinary workers with modest incomes cannot afford a place of their own. My party has secured significant progress on an affordable housing scheme in Budget 2019, but the key is now delivery. It is exasperating that after 6 separate housing plans that things are moving so slowly, and to use your own phrase, this is not about money, yet there are no affordable houses available. Another ongoing crisis is in our health services. And the Department, and the Taoiseach, of course, when you were a Minister for Health, one thing that you may have underspun was the fact that the new Children's Hospital will be the biggest capital project in the history of Irish healthcare. Well, it's come in at 3 times the 650 million estimate. You told us that short of an asteroid hitting the planet, there was enough money to build the hospital. In 2016, the hospital was expected to open in 2020. 3 years on, that has moved to 2023. It is failures and delays such as these that really infuriate so many people. We saw failure and delay again last Friday evening with the publication of the new hospital waiting lists. At the start of 2015, when you were Minister for Health, you abandoned the targets of your predecessor, James Riley, who is a member of this House, for waiting lists where outpatients were to be seen within a year and inpatients and day cases were to be treated within 8 months. Instead, you set new targets of 18 months to be achieved by mid-2015. We all know these targets were never met, and now the outpatient waiting times are simply scandalous. Now, it would be wrong for me to say that there has been no improvement in the reduction of the inpatient waiting times. They have moved from 86,000 to 70,000 since 2017, which is welcome. However, key for this has been the restoration of the National Treatment Purchase Fund, its reactivation being secured under the Confidence and Supply Arrangement, and its success to date has been positive. I would also like to mention the challenges in care for the elderly from both the lack of the provision of home help, which is massively underfunded, and now the stalling of the funding for the Fair Deal scheme. People are living much longer, thankfully, now, which is great news, but we have to plan accordingly for those older people that need extra care in their home or in a nursing home. Another area of life where waiting seems to be signatory policy for this government is, of course, the National Broadband Plan. This week, yet again, we are faced with another missed deadline for it. Yesterday, you informed the Dáil that the full cost would be $3 billion, inclusive of VAT, as if that were a saving. And this is the same plan that was initially estimated at $500 million. Keeping a lid on cost overruns does not seem to be a priority for this government. It seems to prefer to describe cost overruns as underestimates. Taoiseach, I thank you for coming to this House today. It's great to see a full attendance amongst Fine Gael colleagues. In particular, although at times their absence contributes to failures of delivery. I won't mention the lost guillotine vote yesterday that you promised would never happen. We all know that timing is everything, and your colleagues were seemingly too distracted by Bono to attend this House to support Minister Ross. On a more serious note, it would be remiss of me not to acknowledge the willingness of many of your Cabinet colleagues and ministers to engage with this House, and I thank you and through them for their time. The Minister for Justice, in particular, has been a regular presence in this House, and we look forward to continuing engagement with him. The truth is, despite your predecessors' attempts to abolish us in 2013, the House has never been more relevant. Colleagues across all parties and on both the government and opposition sides have been active and committed in advancing policy priorities. In particular, Taoiseach, I urge you to work with the bills that have passed through this House and are now on the agenda of the Dáil. I thank you, Taoiseach, for coming here today and assure you of our continuing constructive work and engagement.